The blueprint for extinction is drawn in the thread. Structural integrity lost for the bread. Shouting at shadows from a shattered screen, while market share evaporates silent and clean. You weaponize the wine, you validate the thief. Broadcast in the tactical maps of your own grief. Broadcast in the wine, you validate the thief. Broadcast in the tactical maps of your own grief. A public display of a failing design, feeding the monster that crosses the line. Step up from the static in the stall. Testify before the legislative wall or become the ghost. Donate to the fire, not the funeral post. If your silence is a weapon, why you're happy to bear? Your silence is a weapon they're happy to bear. The infrastructure crumbles while you wait for a sign. Legislative gaps where the competitors dine. Advocacy isn't a post or a plea. It's a seat at the table, a part of the fee. You're the author of the void, the architect of the end. Breaking the very glass you claim to defend. Breaking the very glass you claim to defend. Breaking the very glass you claim to defend. One click of the share, 1,000 more fall. A masterclass in nothing, a blueprint for them all. Step up from the static in the stall. Testify before the legislative wall or become the ghost. Donate to the fire, not the funeral post. If your silence is a weapon, why you're happy to bear? Your silence is a weapon they're happy to bear. Step up, testify, become a member. Donate or close the door. Step up from the static in the stall. Testify before the legislative wall or become the ghost. Donate to the fire, not the funeral post. If your silence is a weapon, why you're happy to bear? Your silence is a weapon they're happy to bear. The blueprint is finished. Extinction approved.
That's the signal! Go, 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 go! Let's go freaking get here!
This is Radio Free.
Hey everybody, it is Gary with Shatterproof the Auto Glass Podcast and the Independent Glass Association. Today we have a great show for you. And what I mean by great show is we are here to provide you with the blueprint for extinction. And what better way to provide you this blueprint with an East Coast, West Coast kind of bulletproof extinction zero-sum game. We are going to talk about two opposite sides of the coast, the same problem, completely different legislation, and we're going to hopefully answer all the questions that you have out there that have to do with why is this legislation being introduced, good or bad? What are the components of it? And what should we be doing about it? And to get things started, I'm going to introduce Jimmy down in this corner. If I'm pointing this way, there we go. Yeah. Jimmy, go ahead.
Hi, Gary. Thank you for having me. I am Jimmy Saldana with Showcase Auto Glass. We are coming up on our 20th year in business, and we're happily located here in the city of Highland, where I currently serve as Mayor Pro Tem for the city.
So you're well aware of how politics work.
Well aware, and I'm very versed on this bill, and I think we're doing the right thing by advocating, obviously, against the parts that serve the corporate overlords, those the safe lights of the world. We got to stand up and fight together. So I really appreciate all the efforts that the IGA is putting forth, and I'm just trying to piggyback off of that and use whatever I can, whatever tools are at my disposal to help fight the fight.
Yeah, and thank you very much for all the help, especially Senator Reyes, who she just was a bulldog, but then still voted yes, which was kind of weird. But I get how that works, and we're actually going to have a 2-minute video later that just shows how legislators just blow through these things. So
right. So I was fortunate enough to be. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to connect with Senator Reyes. So, Highland, the city that we're in, is actually split into two Senate districts. She covers one side of it, and the other side is covered by Senator Ochoa Bogue. I sat down with both of them, and I explained our side of things, and they were very receptive. I'm glad that Senator Reyes sits on that Judiciary Committee, because you're right, she was the only one that had any questions and was, kind of pushing back on the narrative that Senator Grayson and Tom Tucker were spinning.
Yeah, and just while we're on that real quick, not to take away from Trey, who's below me right now, but Senator Grayson sits on this next committee, go figure. So it's kind of, I hope he recuses himself when he starts the narrative. I mean, he'll be introducing it, but then I hope he says, no, I can't vote on it because I have something to do with it. But it's amazing that he's on the Appropriations Committee, which just ironically is the next place this went to. So,
Yeah.
And then so speaking of Trey right below me, Trey, take it away. A lot of you know Trey because he lacks personal protection equipment in his videos, and some of the things that he waves around are not tools that I would work around my car personally on. But Trey, take it away.
All right, everybody. So I'm Trey Black. I'm with Glass Express in Beaufort, South Carolina. The more beautiful half of the country, I would argue, Mr. California. But so I've been involved, for the past, 4 or 5 years here trying to get legislation introduced in the state. And for the first few years, we were spinning our wheels. We were getting nowhere, no reception with legislatures. And we started to catch a little steam, and then I got in touch with Gary here with the IGA, and Gary helped us put together a pretty solid bill, and we were able to get it introduced since we had the backing of an industry organization. We were able to get that introduced and managed to get it into subcommittee, where we're fighting to try to get some more attention on it here before the end of the legislative session. So hopefully we could get these big guys reined in a little bit.
Yeah. So what's interesting, so I got Jimmy on one side and Trey on the other with identical problems in their state right now, which is we know the legislation's happening. The IGA at least has given a huge ramp up from day one when we started getting hints that the lobbyists were circling certain legislators on this, knowing this NCOIL template. So it's something we brought up over a year ago now, and it's something the IGA officially went on record with NCOIL, and it's on NCOIL's website. You can see our opposition to it, and we laid everything out saying this is bad. But here is a bill that, if you did change your template, is fair and equitable to everybody: consumers, auto glass shops, TPAs, and the insurance companies. And of course, just like everything, we got brushed aside. And one important thing that I always want to bring up about this NCOIL template, it wasn't a bunch of legislators sitting around the room going, we got to really do something about this auto glass because it's out of hand. There's so much fraud. The reality was lobbyists worked their way in. And when I mean lobbyists, I mean companies like Safelight participated in the crafting of this template. They assisted these legislators in putting it together. And they also brought along their partners. So the National Insurance Crime Bureau, which if you just do a little due diligence, you don't have to dig very far, you will see how instrumental Safelight and the NICB have been together in crafting and working on information and data, really starting with Florida. And they proliferated it from there and made it into this big thing like auto glass fraud's happening everywhere. So the problem, though, isn't that we don't know how to fight it or we can't fight it. The reality is the Independent Glass Association, as a not-for-profit and just an association, we certainly, on your behalf, so Jimmy's behalf, Trey's behalf, and all the shops in all the states, we can go in and say, this is why this is bad. This is what we recommend. And this is what harm's going to happen. And this is the harm that is happening now by the people that are introducing it. And that's where our step up happens. So shops like Jimmy and Trey, they have to get on the phones. They're emailing. I know, Jimmy, you put out that coalition letter. So you even had to spend time to get, what was it, like 8 shops together? And I'm sure that wasn't
Yeah,
easy.
no, actually, we reached out to a lot more shops, and that's been, a big part of my frustration is that we reached out to every shop here in the state that's registered with the AGSC, and the truth of the matter is, we really didn't get a lot of responses, and not a lot of people were willing to sign up on board. I mean, everybody wants to complain. Everybody has stories, right, about how the Safe Flight stole their jobs and how they short pays and all these other issues, but nobody wants to do anything about it, and that's very frustrating. I think that they know that, and that's why they feel like, hey, well, while they're disorganized and it's chaos over there, we could ramrod these bills and try to get them through because they're obviously self-serving to them, right?
Oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
that's really been one of the frustrating parts. And yeah, I mean, I got to thank you, Gary, because first became aware of the bill thanks to an email that you sent out. I saw SB 988 come out, and I'm not a very sophisticated person, so I downloaded the bill. I mean, I read through it. I understood about half of it because it's all in that legalese language, right? That it's all lawyers speak to me. So
Yep.
I downloaded it, and I ran it through Chat GPT, and I had it explain it to me, and like I was a 5-year-old. Thankfully, because of my past, or previous usage of Chat GPT, it knows that I'm, both a councilman and a glass shop owner. And so it basically told me, hey, these are the red flags here. This is what's happening. And when I saw that, of course, I knew, hey, well, I'm in this position. Let me use the relationships that I've built, in the last year and a half that I've been on the council, and let me see if I can get some FaceTime with some people that are actually going to be voting on this thing. And so we sprang into action. I did, I did craft that coalition letter. I think, honestly, the biggest thing was explaining, and it can't just come obviously from one person, right? Or it can't just come from the IGA. It has to be a collective effort. One of the things that we can all do as independents is reach out to our electeds and explain to them how the glass how the glass industry operates, because none of them know that it's SafeLight that answers the phone when you're calling in a glass claims. They don't know that. If we explain to them how it's really, the business is set up in such a monopolistic way, like they're more than happy to hear from you. Number one, because obviously you voted for them, you put them in those seats. But number two is there a lot of these senators, especially here in California, they're very happy to help the small mom and pop businesses, and stand up against these corporate, Goliaths. But it starts with explaining to them how the process works. I think when Senator Reyes was talking to the Safe Flight rep, she mentioned, like, I don't know how the auto glass industry works. I would be lost, So how do you ensure that it's a fair rotation? And of course, he spilled what he spun that
2 minutes.
those web of lies, the 2-minute claim. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And the fair rotation, which we all know is lies. But like I said, it can't. All of this just can't come from me. And what I've done is we drafted that letter. We had a few shops that signed up, and yeah, it was emailed to all of the 40 senators here in California, 40 state senators, and all of their staffers. I mean, yeah, it took a lot of work, and I was willing to do it. But honestly, if we have to come together, all the shops have to come together and really help out with that.
Yeah, and so Trey, this sounds a lot like the effort you had, because again, you reached out to a senator in your area that so you tell your story of how this all came about as well for your bill.
So we coincidentally enough, we were introduced to, we couldn't find a senator here locally in our district that would really give us any time of day, and we had tried working through and building relationships and getting brushed off. And then coincidentally enough, another shop in our state who recently sold out to the big guys made a connection for us with their senator in their district. And, he said, "Hey, I want to help you guys out after hearing about the situation." And we were able to provide him with something. He wanted to see something that was signed off on by an organization that represented us as a whole in the state, to see that, hey, that's not just a couple rogue guys, me and one other guy, trying to get a bill written that may, disadvantage everybody. So we were able to bring that to him with, the IGA backing us up here, and managed to get it introduced. But like when you were talking about, Tom Tucker standing up, telling the misleading facts that he was spewing in California. I think you guys might have had it a little worse than we did, because I testified also in a subcommittee hearing just a few weeks ago where Tom Tucker testified at, and it was just, to me, it was egregious. It was, he brought up the fact of how there have been 0 complaints about Safe Flight Solutions misconduct, and he said this, just right in front of everybody, like it was truth and it was gospel. And to which I had to reference, when it was my turn to testify after them, that they're active Federal Trade Commission and Department of Justice investigations into this exact matter right now. How can you say there are no complaints in the U as an organization when they're clearly documented cases? And then on top of that, the IGA has the repository of all of the Don't Get Steered program. Got that entire repository of information.
Right.
And then, later in that conversation, so the way the law is written in South Carolina, anyone can make a complaint to the Department of Insurance, to include shops. And it was written that way in the law during the 2012-2013 session. Well, the DOI, the Department of Insurance, was brought up to testify as well. And Senator Ott started grilling them a little bit. It's like, hey, you guys are receiving complaints. Why is nobody checking into this? And there was a time in our state where shops would complain to the Department of Insurance, but it went on deaf ears. So everybody kind of quit calling the Department of Insurance to try to complain, because we couldn't get anything done. So then when the Department of Insurance testified, they got to make the statement, well, we haven't received any complaints in the last 18 months. And we also do not recognize complaints from shops as valid complaints. It has to come from a consumer. So, I mean, so it's double-sided. We got Tom Tucker coming up and testifying to something that we believe is untrue, and then the DOI coming up and completely neglecting their duty in the state to keep the checks and balances in place with legislation that we already have on.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, so let's just take a look real quick. In South Carolina, what you're talking about was back in 2012, 2013, your state trade passed this legislation, but during that, Safe Flight had pontificated that if they banned steering, it was going to raise costs, void warranties. There's a whole litany of things, and this is all public information. Anybody can Google it. Just Google Safe Flight South Carolina 2012 legislation, and you could read all of the just garbage that was put out, all of the reasons why that if legislators were going to pass these laws, Safe Flight and consumers would be upended, really the consumer, and everything. If we remember everything Tom Tucker has said in Washington and all these other states that we have shown in public testimony, he always says it's the consumer. The consumer. The reality is, I haven't seen one consumer step up at any of these hearings and go, "Hi, I'm a consumer. I'm for this bill to protect me." It's always somebody else. And I think Jimmy in California, there was a real quick footnote where it was a gal from the insurance agents of the Pacific or something. I don't remember exactly. I know some of the other states, NAMIC, and some of these other mutual associations, they're always for it because their lobbyists say, "Oh yeah, here you go, get in there and do it." But the reality is, when we look at these two opposite sides of the country right now, the deafening thing that comes from both sides is, number one, shops sit idle. They don't get involved. To Jimmy's point, you email a bunch of people, they don't get back to you. You have a handful of it. Those handful even then don't get fully engaged and involved in it. Same thing with Trey. He's over there making calls, getting people in it. In fact, if I remember correct, Trey, even in your state, factions started to form where you had shops going, we don't want to get behind this, because everybody had an agenda. And the reality was nobody was looking at this legislation going, wait a minute, while we're fighting, Safe Light's agenda and the insurance company agenda is just moving forward. And let's worry, just if the law allows everybody to do what they want to do, then let it. So California was polarizing, Jimmy. That one really shocked me.
And I could see Trey having a little bit of a harder time because he was looking to introduce a bill, right? Here we're being reactionary. We're reacting to a bill that's already been introduced. And so I as a councilman, I could tell you, these senators, they don't want to vote. Like, I would never vote on an issue here, that's brought up during one of our council meetings without having, looked at the staff report, understood it, to know exactly what I'm voting on. So I think here in our state, we would have an easier time getting access to these senators. Like Trey was saying, he was, having a hard time finding a senator that would give him a time of day. Here, these guys are going to want to hear from the independents because there's already a bill that's introduced, and at some point they're going to have to vote on it. So you have to know what you're voting on. These people would, but again, it takes that effort. And if if nobody is putting forth the effort, then yeah, you're right. I mean, Safe Flight's just going to ramrod this bill through, and then we're going to have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah. So let's talk about the points in the bill real quick, because I think this is where a lot of confusion comes in. And this NCOIL model, you can go to the IGA website. We have the model up there. You can Google NCOIL automotive glass template. There's a million places you could get this information. But remember, as we're talking about these points today, they are entering this legislation as a Trojan horse for consumer protection. And it's being led with the recalibration ADAS banner, if you will. And we'll talk about in the end how that ADAS recalibration is basically the bow on this tiny little package they're introducing.
Like a veil, right? The veil, yeah. But then you got to lift the veil and see what's underneath.
Exactly, because it's crazy. And even when we get to that part, the ADAS is still an incomplete aspect of it, with harm still in it for both the consumer and the insured. So the first one we want to talk about is the pre-authorization toll booth, if you will. So in this legislation, not in South Carolina, because we've introduced something completely different there, but in the rest of the country right now, they're saying you cannot begin work on the vehicle until you get a claim number. And that's Tom Tucker's now infamous, it only takes 2 minutes to get a claim number. And we all know that's complete BS. Yeah. And the one thing I want to point out is, if you've ever taken the time to read your policy is an indemnification by the insurance company to cover your loss, whether it's collision, comprehensive, or otherwise. And in there, they say, we will reimburse and we will make you whole for your loss. But it doesn't say only if you do ... Now, there are some policies that do state that. Some of them are written mainly in Florida at this point. And that was all because of what Governor DeSantis, Safe Light, and others did there around the AOB, which we'll get to next. But the way it should be work is, I'm a customer, I engage with Jimmy or Trey's shop. They go, great, I'll get it going. And then the insurance company pays. You get a claim number, you have a valid policy. I've already proven to Jimmy and Trey, here's my USAA card, I'm covered. And then you call and you just get verification of coverage and you're done. We all know how this mandate works, is they want to funnel you, the consumer, through the toll booth, through the management booth, somebody who's looking out for them. But we already know that Senator Reyes pointed it out. She said, I only hear the Safe Light commercials. Mm-hmm. And that's not saying Jimmy or Trey are doing something wrong in their areas. It's just that I'm sure, Jimmy, you don't have $1 million a week budget for media in the Inland Empire. I mean, that's not happening. I mean,
sadly, I don't. And
no does.
What I feel that this does, and that's what I'm trying to explain to the senators, is that this forces Safe Flight, or the TPAs, into the picture. Right? Kind of reminds you of that movie, King of New York, where Christopher Walken says, if a nickel bag gets sold in Central Park, I want my cut. And that's what Safe Flight is doing here with this, is they're forcing their way into the picture. And you're right. I mean, if the policy states that the customer could be made whole, why do we need to bring them on board?
Yep, exactly. And then what happens is, as this toll booth is put up, that they come in with strike number 2 or threat number 2. And that threat now talks about what's called the assignment of benefits. And there's a lot of shops and a lot of people I talk to, they go, I don't even know what the AOB is. What does that mean? And to the extent most of you probably on your work orders have a little disclaimer that says you're assigning the rights for you to act as the insured when dealing with the insurance company or their partners, meaning like Safe Flight Solutions. Mm-hmm. And this benefit, though, this assignment of benefits, there's this little thing called post-loss assignment. So what this means is if they take that away, Jimmy and Trey can't act on behalf of the insured. No glass shop can in California if this gets passed, or any other state where this is at. So this now puts all of the pressure, number one, on the insured. So this is where the insured's like, oh no, I don't understand any of this. Why is the person on the phone saying that Jimmy's glass shop may not do the warranty? Why am I getting this email that says the calibration requires a dealership or some specialized stuff? And they're confused. But they have to deal with the aspect of it, not the auto glass shop. And you are losing the benefit of anybody in the world doing service for an insurance company, a cash shop. Your right to collect is gone. So if it takes 120 days for, let's say, State Farm to pay you, when the AOB's gone, you can't go to State Farm and ask for that money. You can't go to State Farm and ask for a late payment. You can't do anything with State Farm because you have to go after the policyholder. And now that inconveniences and harms the policyholder, because we're not even talking fraud here or anything. Just if we're using late payment or short payment as a benchmark here, that the consumer's not going to understand that, because the consumer has said, well, why hasn't my insurance company paid you? And then what they have to do is they have to get on the phone and complain to their insurance company, and they're only going to end up back at Safe Flight. So they'll call the 800 number. They're back at Safe Flight, and Safe Flight goes, don't worry, we'll take care of it. Hypothetically, we don't know that for sure. We can allege it. But this AOB now supports that pre-loss claim. It supports cutting the auto glass shop out. So far, the auto glass shop was cut out of doing the job immediately. The auto glass shop is cut out of their rights to stand in the shoes of the insured. And Trey, I know your state, you still have a loophole for post-loss assignment because they didn't clearly define that in the last bill update. But a lot of shops in South Carolina don't realize they still do have access to the AOB for collection matters. And I know you've been back and forth on that to some extent.
Yeah. When it makes sense, because like once we complete the job for the customer, we have that customer signature, the job is completed. We now begin the fight with the third-party administrator in order to get what is rightfully ours. And in many cases, just like shops all across the country, your invoice comes over $50 short, or they say, you know what, we give you prior authorization to use OEM part, but we're revoking that. We think you could have did it aftermarket. Which, I mean, we see that happen regularly. I mean, we've got documented cases of it all over the place. They just choose not to pay for an OEM part anymore, even after it's been approved. So now, rather than using the customer as the tool to fight with the insurance company, which we know most customers, they aren't equipped to handle that sort of conflict or that argument with that third-party administrator, we can step in and make sure we get what was rightfully assigned to us. Whereas if something like this was to go through, could you imagine trying to reach out to every one of your customers every time you've got an issue with a bill that didn't come through properly and asking them to fight for you? How well do you think that's going to go?
No.
You just won't get paid.
Just think about it when you go to the doctor's office and you pay your copay, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 letters show up going, you owe $18 here, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought my insurance company was paying for it. And that's pretty much because the provider is cut out of the negotiating. They come right back to you because you have the deductible, you have all that. And here we are in auto glass. about to have to deal with that exact same thing, where the consumer's going to go, why did Showcase send me an invoice for $95? Well, that was the deal when you engaged my company. Your insurance company didn't pay this amount. This is what you owe. Well, I paid the deductible. Yeah, you did, but that didn't come to me. So, that's...
Well, if you want to know what real consumer protection looks like, to me, allowing the shop to fight on the customer's behalf for the bill that was already agreed upon, that is consumer protection. Because I can only see harm to the consumer or stress that comes to the consumer if you're chasing the consumer for the money that was rightfully should have been paid to you at the time that you were assigned the claim to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On that point, let's just talk, because this now is leading. I mean, we've been kind of talking about pricing. This part of the NCOIL bill where they're talking about market rates, fair and reasonable. They throw all this terminology out. But at the end of the day, and I thought this was funny when Senator Grayson's update to the legislation was, oh, we added the word geographical in there. And I'm like, that's still not defining it, because you're just basically saying, now what's geographical? Population area, zip code, by...
And then in a state as big as California, the market rates in Northern California, they're not the same as Southern California. I mean, honestly, they even change from county to county. The Inland Empire, our rates are a lot less than Orange County, a more affluent area. So, I mean, I found that to be hysterical too. And you're right, it doesn't really clarify what that meant.
No, and none of them do. But what happens is when this legislation gets passed, this is what we see as the market rate funnel. So basically what the TPA can assert or claim in the state, either with the insurance company or on behalf of it, is the market or customary rate is what the pooled shop groups that are all network or non-network still getting paid that way. They say, see, Jimmy and Trey agreed to this, so therefore that's the market rate. And the reality is that is not, from a financial standpoint and how the real world operates, that's not what is fair and customary. That is an artificial rate created by really the insurance companies and their third-party administrators. The thing about California that Senator Grayson changed this on is he moved it away from insurance regulation into civil authority, meaning this becomes a civil penalty, case, and fine, which now goes to the judiciary side of California. Meaning, if Jimmy all of a sudden one day accidentally charges $100 above the invoice, you're now open to $500 to $2,000 in fines for that. And then at some point, it turns into something even bigger, like a strike 3 or something like that. We don't even want to get to that point. But the fact that now a shop who is just looking to recuperate or pay it, charge what their market should be, is going to be civilly penalized for this. It's the first time I've seen this happen in any of these bills. And this is dangerous. Number one, I mean, the market rate thing, even in Florida, because all things come back to Florida on this. The thing in Florida was shops said, hey, the invoice is $1,300 because I have to this, the driving, the insurance, stuff like that. They sued for the short payment. And the reason why so many of them were put together is that's the only way in Florida you could get a case heard by a judge. You just couldn't go in with 1 or 2 or 3 short payments. You had to literally kludge them all together. Plus, law firms wouldn't just take 1 or 2 of your invoices, Jimmy. They needed like 100 of them or 1,000 of them. So that's how they had to do the filings. But this market rate funnel, that's another dangerous part, because now shops in California, if you're listening, you're going to be open to getting fined. But the other part is how they're coming around this is this ADAS loophole on it. So they're saying, okay, you need to inform or in writing to your customer that their car has 1 or more ADAS features and it requires recalibration. And you have to let them know what the outcome is. Okay, I think everybody on this podcast is on board with it. And most people probably watching are like, hey, we're all for safety and informing the consumer. But it doesn't go into the detail, though, of all the other issues that we have is mandating that through all of this, though, the insurance companies have to abide by their policy in that the OE aspect of it, additional costs, the road, all that stuff, gas, all the stuff that you should be charging for that you don't right now, you need to be able to do that. So it's this loose thing that really at the end of the day, you don't even actually have to perform the service because nothing in the bill says you have to perform it. It just says you have to inform them and inform them of the outcome. So so I would say, hey, Jimmy, your car is going to need recalibration, and you're going to go, okay. And then, well, hey, Jimmy, we changed your windshield and we didn't recalibrate. On definition of the way the law is written, I just took care of that from a legal standpoint with my shop. Now, Trey, let's compare that to what we have proposed in the Auto Glass Fairness Act in South Carolina, which is we go through accreditation and we go through registering what the outcome is, and the service has to be performed. Pass or fail, it has to be performed. I know some shops had some feedback about the accreditation part. Like they were like, wait a minute, I have to be certified by somebody. How has it settled down in South Carolina? Are shops on board with that part of it? Or where are we at with that?
So it's settled down some. I think most of our pushback is going to be from folks who, we see it. There's, we've got two sets of problems in our industry. And we've got the big guys that are monopolizing everything. And then we got the little guys who are running around tearing up everything. And a lot of our content done on our channel is focused on these guys that are tearing stuff up. And we're trying to educate the consumer on how this should be done and what to look for. And you can go read the comments on a lot of our videos we make. It steps on a bunch of toes, and some folks get upset about it. But I think it is important, and we're seeing the bigger shops are getting on board with this. When you look at bigger shops like Quack Glass in our state, that has 5 or 6 locations, and a lot of times they carry accreditations, and they're involved with some of the accreditation organizations. Then this is a net benefit for the consumer. And what a lot of these shops are failing to look at is this is not about us when it comes to the accreditation. Rather, this is about the consumer. If any Joe Blow with a pickup truck and a hammer and a chisel can put a windshield in, what is the consumer receiving there? Is every other industry has some sort of accreditation or licensing to protect the consumer, to make sure that they get the quality work that is at least a minimum requirement of what should be performed. And like anything, I understand there are arguments for regulations being put into place, but when we're dealing with such an intense safety factor like a windshield and a recalibration on these systems, it's literally the difference between life and death. And if we can put some sort of, or impose some sort of regulation on ourselves, which is also a give and take thing for the regulation, the bill that we're proposing to be introduced. It's like, look, this is what we want, not only for the consumer, but for the independent shops in the area. But here's what we're willing to concede. Let's have accreditation required in the state, or at least follow regulatory guideline or accreditation guideline. And we can ensure that the insurer, the insurer, when they cut the bill for that job, when they make the payment for that completed job, they know that they're paying a shop who is accredited to do that work and can perform that work up to modern standard, at least modern standard.
Yes.
So
and
it go ahead.
And I believe even in the bill that we wrote, we listed that it was voluntary. So we weren't even saying like you just have to prove that you have received some formal accreditation. And that accreditation we had discussed internally even comes from, you have urethane accreditation. So you went through Dow or Seek or somebody and you're like, hey, my technicians at least abide by this. And we recognize the recalibration aspect of it. End of story. Because one of the biggest things, and I can't even imagine what this would look like in California as far as enforcement would go. Like if it was baked into the law, like, hey, you have to be accredited by XYZ. I don't think the state could afford to send anybody around to validate that that was true. And
You're-
they'd have
you're-
to set up a complaint mechanism. I mean, geez, oof,
No, you're
that's why we
absolutely
said it's
right on there.
voluntary.
And in our letter, I suggested that the bar, the Bureau of Automotive Repair, be the one to handle that sort of licensing. When I spoke to the senators, the first thing I started my presentation to them with, if I were to ask you what's the number 2 safety component on a vehicle, would you guess it's the windshield? Both of them, of course, said no. I said obviously the number 1 is the seatbelt, right? Got to stay in the car. I said, but the windshield supersedes the airbags as far as the importance of safety, because the passenger side airbags depend on it as the backboard that holds them in place. So the windshield, I was informing them about how crucial safety is, and how crucial the windshield is to the safety of the vehicle. And I think us as a whole, we need to do a better job of informing, the public and informing, because to Trey's point, it is, I mean, it's the difference between life and death. And, the other thing I told them, just to kind of have them relate to it, was, look, when we started our business, like everybody else, right, we didn't make any money. The first couple of years, you're lucky if you just keep the rain off your head, right, and you pay your bills. And so once my savings ran out, I started delivering pizzas at night for Papa John's. And I didn't make the pizzas, I didn't touch the pizzas, but sure enough, the state said, hey, you have to go get a food handler certification. So I had to take a course and take a test and pay the $40, and I got my food handler's card. Well, that's great. Again, I wasn't making the pizzas. So you mean to tell me for something like windshield installations, which is absolutely, monumental as far as importance for the safety of the vehicle, any, Tom, Dick, and Harry with like Trey said, with an auto glass rack, a chisel, and a hammer can call himself a technician and go out there and claim that they're doing it according to proper procedures. Well, what are these proper procedures?
Well,
and so
I think that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is every one of Trey's videos he puts out. I mean, the hack jobs he's doing on those things are just, I've never seen a guy just go just at it.
We handgun everything. We can't afford electric caulking guns around here.
Yeah, I mean that's just the way to go. But even so you had to pay for a food handler's license for an enforcement that would never paid the money and no one was ever going to check on it.
Actually, you're right. Nobody ever came. Nobody ever, the inspector, the local county food inspectors, they would come by but they would check the food. They never asked for the certification cards. And with this, probably nobody would, but I think to be registered into the TPA networks, they would probably ask for that, just like they ask for insurance, certificates to make sure that you're carrying garage keepers or general liability. I think it would be something like that. And going back, to what you were saying before about pricing, Gary, that's the other thing that I made sure I told the senators was, look, they talk about consumer protection, but about pricing and how this, keeps costs low. We've already agreed as part of being in the network to do the pricing, to do the job at the price that the insurance companies have set. So that's not even a point of contention here. But again, it all goes back down to having to explain to these guys how the insurance operates and what we're up against as the little guys.
Yeah, and even if you're in network, so Trey, I'm going to throw this one to you. You've got that Honda that's going to need recalibrating, and you already know this model is going to fail if they don't authorize the OE glass up front. Take us through what your loss is from that step on. You either have two choices, right? Deny the job, or you take the job and lose money.
Yeah. So here's a good example. I've got a Subaru windshield that we just got delivered to us today that has the eyesight in mono camera. And those windshields specifically, we will not put an aftermarket in it because the rate of failure on that glass is so high that it's inevitable we're going to wind up having to do the job again. So we just get ahead of it. we ask for OEM up front because we know that's what that car requires in order for the job to be done properly the right way, and actually be completed to its fullest the first time. But if we were to follow the guidelines of how the third-party administrator would like to see us do it, is no, okay, we're not approving OEM unless you have a quality issue and you have a failure for recalibration. So they say you need to go ahead and buy that aftermarket glass, put that aftermarket glass in, go through the entire process, pay a guy to do it, use your adhesive, and then perform the recalibration on it. And only at the very end, after all the work has been completed, a full recalibration has been done, because the difference between a failed and a complete calibration is literally just a screen that tells you whether it passed or failed. The exact same amount of work goes into the entire process, and I can even make the argument that more work goes into a failure, because then you have to diagnose why it failed and be able to point out specifically why it failed to prove that you need that OEM part to make it work. So then you go through the process, do this whole job all over again with a more expensive part after it wasn't paid for the first time. Depending on the region of the country you're in and how much volume you do, you may be lucky enough to get reimbursed for the price of the glass that you put in the first time. But all that labor is free. That recalibration was free. And let's use a good example. That Subaru, that's a dual that's a dual and a static recalibration. So it's got like a 3-part recalibration. We're talking about a substantial amount of money depending on the region of the country that you're in. And meanwhile, I've got a guy that spent half a day on that car, because in our market, it takes us about an hour to do a dynamic on a Subaru with the quality of our road. So I've got a guy that started on that job at 9 a.m. And if, at noon, I may be lucky to figure out I just wasted a half a day on a car that I'm going to have to turn around and spend another half a day on. And then when you look at the amount of money lost in that, with potential earnings, and then just the sheer fact of losing money on the job, you start totaling it up. That's a good way to go out of business.
Oh, it is. And while we're talking about this, and this is for either one of you to chime in on, that, and keep in mind, I know there's shop owners out there or people in the industry watching this going, oh, we already know this, and that's great, and I'm glad you do. If not, this is a good refresher for you. But this podcast also is going out to consumers and lawmakers and whatnot. There's an invite list, and by having Jimmy and Trey on here, they're giving their firsthand accounts as shop owners and managers that say, hey, look, this is the whole deal. You just brought up the dual and static aspect of it. And what's interesting, because we can look at this very easily math-wise with calibration, that going back to the argument of pricing, if 100 insurance companies in a pool it's the same policy, it's the same vehicle. So I have a Ford F-150. Why is it that 8 insurance companies are paying $250 for dual and $175 for static, and 7 insurance companies are paying $325 for dual and $225 for static? And we're not even getting into the nuts and bolts of the actual glass, labor, and whatnot. This is what doesn't make any sense at all in this industry. So they're fighting over there. And I know, just throwing out there, have you started to see calibration rates decline over the last 2 years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've definitely seen that. No, they don't explain it. They just send it in their new pricing sheet saying, hey, these are the rates. And, well, you're part of the network. So, you got to do it. And, you try to bill for, what the old rates were, or especially because obviously we save them in our POS system. And so when we're invoicing, the previous rates come out, and my biller, she'll try to process those through, but nope, they get rejected for sure enough. They get flagged, and then here come the delays in payment.
Yep. And now if that AOB was gone, you actually have to call, you can't call Safe Flight Solutions anymore. You can't even call the insurance company. You're literally going to have to call the consumer. And that's the dangerous part that I was leading up to, is something as innocuous as this, because at the same time, I don't think Autel or Bosch or any of these companies have come back to you and said, oh, hey guys, I know you're making less now on your recalibrations, so we're going to charge your renewal less. That's not happening. We know that goes up, targets go up. So that's just the thing too, is the cost of business. While this industry has been shifting down, there's less money being made, yet expenses go up. I mean, we just put out a bulletin in our newsletter this week about the gas prices again. Here it's COVID gas pricing all over, and the distributors are taking advantage of that, and everybody's citing, oh my God. At the same time, I'm asking glass shops, you need to make the decisions in your business that make sense for you. So all of a sudden, if your profitability is down because of gas and you're not raising your prices or charging a possible, and that kind of leads me to really what I think we all see happening online is the complaints on social media. And I just want to let everybody know again, because I've said this in other podcasts, we know that Safe Light does this. We know the insurance companies do this. We are all well aware of what happens. And for the thousands upon thousands of complaints that are online, and then all the fights that happen in the threads, and no, these people are doing it wrong, the IGA is not doing anything and whatnot. You got one person over on a lobbying side for somebody else that's getting paid, and they go, well, while they're fighting and while those shops are not reporting and they're not doing anything, we have the ability to get in there. But if we take the power of all the people complaining, and everybody takes 5 minutes out to either provide a steering, late payment, short payment, OE authorization complaint, and then I think, Jimmy, you can let me know because you've had some experience here with this. I'm going to bring this up. We have made it so easy for a glass shop to file their opposition. And the reality is, all when we announce the state and we put it up, all you have to do is come in here, click on this is what I'm doing. Then this form comes up, and here's all we need from you. This is it.
Now that right there does take 2 minutes. I'm gonna tell you guys out there. Yeah, that's a 2-minute thing right there.
And you can even see what letter is being filed on your behalf. You can read this. You could download it. You could download it and turn it into your own letter to go and file. Because that is the other, while this is most of the time what we have on here, we are filing your official complaint to the proper chair or the committee or whoever's involved with it. But at the same time, you can even gather more power if, when we say here's somewhere else you can go, this is the position letter portals. And these are, in most states, they have them where you can go in and register your direct on your own letterhead, your own likeness and whatnot. So that's something that the IGA does with most of the bills that we go in. Some states require us to register as a lobbyist, which we've done. So if you're out there in, South Carolina, Trey, we're a registered lobbyist. Louisiana, we had to tote the bill there. And for some of you, we're going to get to that here in a second. But we have made it so easy. Shops literally, in my opinion, do not have an excuse anymore. It's that easy. And despite that, the 500 plus emails we sent out in California, 22 in the last committee, 22 people filled this out. And we were not asking for anything other than who you are, your shop name, your address, and your email. And that was it. We already did the hard lifting. We've created the system, and these systems aren't free. This process of the email, the direct posting and everything, this costs the association money, cost us time to put it together. And I only bring that up because if I come down here and I look, California, we have only received $457 in what we need to survive there. We are actually operating in the red in our advocacy in every state. Every state we've been doing this, we've been stepping up. You've seen the communications, you've seen the videos, you've seen my participation in direct testimony, either in person and whatnot. But this just kind of gets back to this whole thing of shops just sitting around thinking somebody else is going to do it for them, and it literally turns into a law getting passed. We've been very fortunate in several states to educate and work in a very timely manner, and really get legislators on the phone and go, look, this is what happens. Pick up your phone right now. See what it's like to file a claim through your State Farm, your Allstate. You don't even have to file it. Just see what it's like, and you will see what our message is, at least on the top there. I also want shops to know, and I'm going to play what just happened this morning in Louisiana for everybody. This goes to show you that what happened in Washington, what's happened in Virginia, what's happened in California, the hearings, those are outliers. Typically, legislators don't get involved. They don't call a witness. They don't do anything. If you want to see how quick a bill moves through, let's just watch 2 minutes of this today. This is the Louisiana auto glass bill.
Oh, you got another one?
Yeah, I got another one.
Okay, I didn't even realize that. All right.
So it'll be just as quick.
All right, so it'll be
929.
929? That's right, 929. Thank you, Senate Pro Tem. Okay, Senate 929, and we do have amendments on that as well. They're being handed out now.
Okay.
Just tell us what the bill does real quick, and then we'll hit the
Yep.
amendments.
House Bill 929 creates the Louisiana Motor Vehicle Glass Law and classifies certain conduct in the auto glass repair market as unfair, deceptive insurance trade practices. This bill is based on in-coil model legislation, and it essentially establishes clear rules for the auto glass repair market to protect consumers, ensure safe repairs, and prevent fraud. And I do have a very simple amendment, and all the amendment does is there's a provision in there that says the insurance company cannot require usage of a particular repair shop, and we're adding after repair shop recalibration facility. So all we're doing is adding recalibration facility to the provision that says you cannot require that a particular vendor perform the repairs.
All right. I'll make a motion to adopt those amendments. Any question on the amendment? Seeing none. Any opposition to the amendment? Seeing none. The amendment set 2467 has been adopted. Would you like to close? And let me read some cards real quick in support of your previous bill. Tim Temple was in support, did not wish to speak. Harrison Gitz with G&O Inc. Marianne Machat for 10,000 Women. These are all in support but didn't wish to speak. And Luke Bullock with LA Realtors. For this bill, we have, these are all in favor but did not wish to speak. Kevin Cunningham, APCIA. Jesse McCormick, Capital Partners. Chris Coulon, USAA. Jody Boudreau, Professional Insurance Agents. The board is clear. Any questions, any further discussion? Nope. I'll make a motion to adopt, to move favorable on House Bill 9209 with amendments. Seeing no opposition, that bill is reported with amendments.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it. So you just saw that. Now, one thing I want to point out, the green cards are everybody who's for it. The salmon / kind of not really red cards, that's all the opponents, and then there's notes on it. So clearly the chairman was only handed who's for it, those cards. The opposition was never taken up. We're in there somewhere, as well as 7, maybe 8 other glass shops there. And now they've added recalibration shops to this, which is just amazing in itself. But you could see now what happens. Some states don't even have the process. The committee just wants to get this. They want to wash their hands. They've done their part on behalf of who sponsored them or who asked them to introduce the law, and they move right on. And something I want to put out there again is, here we are in Louisiana. We have done a huge outreach, and the Louisiana fund is sitting at a big zero. We have had to spend a considerable amount of time and money to register as a lobbyist in the state. We have recouped nothing. And aside from maybe the handful of IGA members that we do have in the state, membership fees do not cover advocacy work at all. Membership fees are relatively inexpensive to be a member. We give you a lot of other content, learning materials and whatnot. But when it comes to advocacy, this is literally out-of-pocket time and money for the association. I cannot stress that enough. And when we have Now I have to spend probably a good 16 to 20 hours with the next chair and committee and this existing committee, hoping to put a stop on it, because the next thing is, well, what is this going to cost us? And typically in appropriations, that's where you can kill things. But again, it's a tough sell. We didn't experience that, Jimmy, and I don't know. You, Trey, there was kind of a brush off in your last hearing, not to that extent.
Yeah. So, watching that, it made me think of something that I'd like to say to everybody. It's what I realized. This is the first year that I have ever testified in anywhere regarding a bill, whether it's committee, subcommittee, or anything. And I've done it once this year. But what became apparent to me is when there were lobbyists inside the room that were there to speak their opposition on the bill that we have in our state. I learned quickly that these lobbyists cannot speak to these issues the same way that we as independents can speak to these issues. I think I was more nervous to start that testimony. I mean, my voice was shaking. I couldn't hardly speak when I started my testimony. And it just became apparent to me that just me, some dumb redneck from South Carolina, I went up and made Tom Tucker and other lobbying groups that were there representing the insurance companies completely look incompetent. It became so obvious that they had no clue what they were talking about, or that they were just misrepresenting what the truth was, that if you are in a state and there's something going on, there's a House bill, there's a Senate bill, and there's an opportunity for you as an independent to go testify, like, take the time, take the day off of work. I know it costs money. I mean, it costs me money every time we go up here to talk to senators, and all the time I've got invested, me and a handful of other shops in the state, to do what we do. But show up and testify. Show up, tell your story, keep it to the facts. Don't get emotional. Don't come in and safe light dump on them. Just cordial, kind, and make everybody aware of the issues that we have going on. And you will be amazed how much reception you'll get when they realize how familiar you are with the topic at hand, over some jerk that was just hired in your capital city and paid thousands of dollars to show up and talk about something when they have zero knowledge on the issue at hand.
Yeah, and to even help you out, because not everybody is a presenter, not everybody is a public speaking figure. We all don't understand legalese unless you've been, doubled down on a good monthly chat or AI program or something. And even then, it doesn't really know auto glass as much. We give talking points. So you go to your state. We have done all of the heavy lifting so that you have a few things so you can go up there and sound like, hey, I got this. I testify all the time. I like to do it as a hobby. We provide as much as we can. And if we don't have something, reach out to us. Member or not, we're here to help this industry change, the change that everybody's been asking for. And the one thing I keep pointing out is that I hear this from people, I don't know, somebody just recently said across the aisle in their podcast, like the other group, meaning us, across the aisle. Look, we're one whole industry, and the reality is we all have to be on the same page, and we have to be talking the same talking points. And this really boils down to a couple things. One, the IGA is not the IGA of 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even when it first started. I think actually we're more about when we first started, the grassroots, get it done, fight at all cost. And we've made more headway in the last 3 years than I believe any association or previous management of this association has done ever. And because we're unapologetic about it, we're sticking to the facts, we have transparency in it, and we don't let the drama get in the way of what the real mission here is, and that's supporting shops like Jimmy's, Trey's, and all of you that are out there watching. Let's wrap this up with a big bow. I'll throw it to Jimmy. Last comments on this. I mean, we have another hearing coming up, so next week.
Yeah, and so refresh my memory, Gary. What committee is this?
Yeah, so this now goes on to the appropriations.
Appropriations.
So this is the bean counters. So we have targeted and tailored our argument to to dump this based off of the cost of enforcement in California and the
Right.
fact that we believe it's impossible. But that hearing is Monday, and we put out the call to action. It was Monday, letting shops know you have until Friday at 5 p.m. to get that on there. And you just go to iga.org/California, click on that red button and file it. It's real simple.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would just like to say that it doesn't take a lot of effort. 5 minutes a week, like you said. To just draft up a letter. That's going to be the biggest thing, right? Is drafting the letter. But after that, 5 minutes is all you take to email a couple senators, to call them to say, hey, I would like some FaceTime. Again, I think the more people, we have to band together. We have to forget that, hey, we're competitors in a market, and really fight this fight together, because it's only together that our voices will be heard. I don't even know what that big company's budget is for things like this, but obviously they're spending a lot of money because they know that if they can get it to go through, it's going to be worth it for them in the end, right? And so we kind of have to band together. I really thank you, Gary, for I think one of the biggest tools that, and you really didn't mention it, but one of the biggest tools that the IGA has is that repository, that database of all these complaints. If we can alert and make our senators aware that exists, take a look at it. SafeLight is not as squeaky clean as they claim to be, as Tom Tucker believes them to be. And if we can educate these senators and give them that personal experience, that personal touch, they're going to be receptive to it. And again, they don't want to vote on something that they don't fully understand. And so,
absolutely, yeah. Our steering and repository platform, and it is constantly being updated. We have another update that's coming out that makes it easier to search. You have a full keyword search. If you're looking up steering, you want to label things. This isn't what the IGA makes up. This is what every shop out there lives. This is what you've reported. Last week in our Tom Tucker rebuttal podcast, let's say, we actually used a shop. They were filming their mobile phone while they were on a Geico claim. And that was the whole opening of that, was to show, look, this is just ridiculous. I'm even a network shop, and look at the crap I have to go through. So thank you for that. I mean, that is definitely one of the things we're very proud of. And we're very proud of all the shops who contribute, but it's not enough. It has to be daily. Like I'd say I get an average of maybe 1 to 2 a day. And I go on social media and see 10 complaints. So I'm missing eight of you that didn't just go to iga.org/steering, or even advocacy. And it's real simple. We have made it so simple. Again, just like the other form, Jimmy, we made it simple.
That's literally 2 minutes. That's the 2 minute claim right there.
2 minutes, $2. We're done. We'll call it a day. So California, 5 p.m. this Friday. You have to have, even if you filled it out before, this is a new committee, and it's a new argument, and it's a whole new set of opposition. And we're also opposing because Senator Grayson amended with some ridiculous wording. And everybody's like, oh, why do you speak ill or say it's ridiculous? If you're a public figure and you do something that's ridiculous, be prepared to hear it's ridiculous. And especially when a group like us are telling the truth and stating our truth. That's kind of the whole thing. Trey, what do you got for us?
So one thing it's important to contextualize at your local, state, representative, and senator level is that anytime there's a topic and they get more than just a handful of calls, that's a big deal, because most people do not engage in local politics. So if you're at the state level trying to get something passed, if your local senator gets 5 phone calls, that is a giant deal. And that means it's something they need to pay attention to, especially in a state that's more rural like ours. Just be able to call and show your support, and especially with like these pre-made letters, like go and fill them out. I think in South Carolina. Oh, go ahead. What was that?
No, I said all day. I mean,
yeah, it's like that takes all the work out of it for you. But and that's a real quick and easy way to show your support. But like, so in South Carolina, to my knowledge, I think we have the only bill in the country right now that has been written and introduced by independents in the state to truly protect the consumer, but also help create a more free and fair market. And our goal here is to lay out a blueprint. And what we have been trying to do since the beginning here was to lay out a blueprint that we could get into place in South Carolina, that every state could almost copy and paste to suit the needs of their state and the way the law is written, so that we can have a blueprint to move forward and solve these issues. And it's been a ton of work, and we're trying to cut this avenue for everybody. But voices, we need voices. And I'm going to send this, this podcast around to consumers, to agents in my market, because, agents, man, they need to hear this stuff. And if you're not sending this to those agents, their ultimate job, they need to have an idea what's going on with their consumers, with their customers. And if their customers are getting bullied, man, they need to know about it. They might not even know it's an issue. But so I guess, what I'd like to add to it here is that we're trying to create the blueprint. Everybody go take a look at Senate Bill 767 if you're not in South Carolina, and just read through it. All it takes is a couple shops in every state to get together, get with the IGA, help draft up a bill and introduce it, or try to get, start working to get it introduced in your state. We were at an advantage in our state because we were already putting in the work to have a bill introduced. We had that bill introduced, and I'm pretty confident that if we hadn't have been working on this for, the years leading up to this, that an in-coil bill probably would have been introduced in our state as well. And we would be on the same side as like you guys are in California or in Louisiana, trying to defend what we have rather than trying to move forward. So it takes advocacy. And the idea of setting aside and saying, hey, I just need to focus on my business or whatever, I want to stay away from that because I don't understand it or I'm not good at it. I think that's a poor argument. And I think everybody needs to step up, because without all of our voices together, we're just going to continue to get trampled on, and the consumer is going to continue to get trampled on until you don't have an opportunity to speak up anymore. And your only choice is to just deal with what you got or leave the industry.
Yep. And that bill that Trey's talking about, it's the Auto Glass Reform Act. And we actually have that posted up on our site that you can go and read all about this, all the great things that are in it. It's a real easy read because the way we formatted the template to read is so a legislator could read it very easily. These guys, just like you saw, 2 minutes there for those guys just to brush that off. They actually look at the stuff you send in less than a minute, and everything we craft is in that sweet spot for them to go bullet done. Okay. And then they have assistants then who look at it. So that's a very important thing. We have all of that information that's up there. A lot of thought has been put into the Reform Act. We include aspects of safety and certification and training, and you name it. It's all there. It's really fair. One thing before I go, I want to pass out. I think we saw that pop up here from somebody who left a comment. Dalton Mosier said, it's hard, Gary, when we're in the field doing the whole shebang. I'm not gonna, I don't know. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Tough shit. Like take 5 minutes at the end of your day. I know you're busy, but if you want things to change, you're gonna have to set a little time aside.
I was doing this, Gary, to show that, these are technicians' hands. I'm out there, I'm doing glass, I'm doing, calibrations. I'm out there doing my city council business, attending subcommittee meetings, the airport meetings. I'm a father of 3 young kids at home who play baseball. Man, it's you got to find the time. You find the time for the stuff that you care about. And we should all definitely care about this.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing. I saw a recent podcast with James and Michael McCarthy, and there's going to be the opinion of some people like Michael McCarthy, like, I'll just wait and see. I have to run my business. Well, it's already in his area. New York has a law that has handcuffed him. And they're going to come down to the states around him and the state he's in. And all of a sudden, he's going to find out what in action, taking 20 minutes a week or 20 minutes a month to actually just say, let me get on board with this. Because when you really get your teeth into it, it will harm you unless your goal is just to build something quick and sell it. That's a totally different deal. But if your intention is to make this a business and grow it and profitable and shareholders and everything, you have to look at this aspect of it. You can't wash your hands of it. You got to take the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
So,
you,
I'd
you know,
like to
I have a
add-
lot of respect for Michael. I mean, I think he's built a great business. But if you have the time to reply to everybody on social media, you definitely have the time to do some advocacy, my friend.
Yeah, or doom scroll or play video
Yeah.
games, like, and we're all guilty of all of the things that we like to procrastinate on. I'm not singling anybody out. I have my procrastinating moments, and I know they get in the way of my productivity. AI has helped a lot with that, and it helps manage my thing. I have agents acting as receptionists and things like that. And that's all great, but at the end of the day, I also know, hey, I've got to hone in on this and actually work on this. So. And Trey, his distractions are these shitty videos he puts out with no gloves on, no protection equipment, waving shit around tools, using X-Acto knives to do crap. I get it. But no, everybody here has put a lot of hard work in. I mean, bravo to both of you. I've totally appreciate the hard work both of you are putting in. You've helped me out a lot. Got me out of some jams, just in both sides of this. It's great to have shops backing what we're doing.
Oh, well, thank you, Gary, for being a champion for all of us independents out there. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And for anybody who's out there, if you're looking to do something in your state, to the way Trey said, it's great to get shops together. And if you're going to do that, don't get them on a Zoom call or a Teams call or something and just bitch for an hour or two about Safe Light or insurance companies. Actually take the time to learn the law in your state, understand and right now, if you are a glass shop, you should be using the IGA website to, at the very least, if you're not going to report the steering, we have a button where you could say, how do I get in touch with the Department of Insurance? Click that button, fill the form out, and we just did the heavy lifting for you again. And to Trey's point, when Tom Tucker said it in both California and in South Carolina, we don't see anybody complaining because shops aren't doing that. So get in touch with me and we'll get your state going in that right direction. We'll inform you of how the legislative process works, which you could be doing in between these sessions with Department of Insurance, or like in Florida, it's like the Department of Agriculture, go figure. But everything's a little bit backwards in Florida. I think Florida's a lot of late night jokes happen with that. But again, we're here. We are a resource. We do rely on membership. We do rely on donations. So if you're hearing me saying that, this is not like, hey, we're making it rain. This is money. We're running always in a deficit over here, and we're a not-for-profit. So it's not like this is going to a corporation or anything. No, I am not employed by SafeLight. I will keep stopping those rumors. So if you haven't figured out by now, I'm on your side. I don't know what to tell you. So anything else to close it up, gentlemen?
Yeah, back to you said tough shit. All right. So we've got two rules around Glass Express. Two primary rules we all abide by. Rule number 1 is don't be a sissy, and rule number 2 is refer back to rule number 1. We repeat it so much my kids know it. So yes, it sucks because you're working your business full time, but it's either death by 1,000 cuts or it's a little bit of pain right now to work towards the common goal. Yes, it's going to suck. Yes, it takes a lot of work, but somebody's got to do it. And if you don't do it, neither is the next guy. So stand up for what is right, and let's move forward with this, across the country.
Absolutely. Good deal. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much again. Thank you for everybody hanging in there. We will chop this podcast up for palatable bites. So if you're just kind of joining us late here and you just want the Cliff Notes, or as I put, the Auto Glass Industry for Dummies guide, we will cut that up for you, make it very palatable and digestible. I just ask that when we do it, spend a minute or two on the video to actually watch it, maybe even drop a comment or something in there. I know, like the newsletters, we send a newsletter out weekly to all of our members and to the industry. And we put a survey out saying, are you even reading this or doing anything with it? And we had 9 people go, yeah, it's useful. But when we look at the numbers, we see that there's 1,000 of you that actually look at it, spend a few minutes on it. We would appreciate some feedback on it. If there's a story or something you want us to cover, a topic about a shop issue with sales, marketing, payroll, whatever, we'll be happy to put it in there. But even that takes time. Trey, being on the board of the IGA, he knows what I go through to get content, to get that stuff out there. This is not an easy job, and it's on behalf of you. It's and whether you're a member or not, you're getting the benefit of it. So get involved as much as you can, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We're gonna bail out of here, and we'll leave you with an ad. Stick around for 1 minute so we can pay the bills around here, gentlemen. I will talk with you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
It's a good time.
We founded Supreme Auto Glass in 2020. We're a 2-person team. We're together 25 hours out of the day. Since we founded Supreme Auto Glass, we've always used Seeker products. So we put our trust in them, and our clients trust us. Being able to use a product that's primaryless to glass, we save a lot of time and money not having to activate the frit, letting us install more windshields in a day for more profit for our small business. The gunability that PDG Premium has is far superior. It has a short cutoff string, and the decking is also a lot firmer, so you don't have to worry in the summer when we set the glass that it's gonna ooze out of the sides. Choosing a premium adhesive is the insurance that we have to make sure the customer is safe and the bond is unbreakable.